Man, why didn't they do a Survivor spoof while they were at it? Overdue Doctor Who review time, and we are up to, well, I thought we were up to the finale, because normally I do two-parters as a single story. It's basically what I do whenever I'm not reviewing the episodes as they come out on a weekly basis. It's how I reviewed Empty Child and the Doctor Dances. It's how I've lumped things together when I've done lists before. That's pretty much how I always do it, and that was my intention coming into this. However, having now watched both halves of this, I know I need to split these up. Because if I don't, I'm going to talk about them as such completely separate entities anyway, that it's just going to result in a double-length review that it would be more easily digestible as two things. Because, honestly, this is such a completely different beast from the parting of ways for about 80% of it. Like, the tail end of it dovetails into the next one, but what's going on up to that point, like, bears no resemblance. Like, it has almost no immediate bearing whatsoever plot-wise. It just kind of wastes time for 40 minutes, and then, I would say 40 minutes, about 30, and then on top of that, tonally, it's completely out of whack. So, you may have guessed from my tone, I don't really like Bad Wolf. I've never liked Bad Wolf. I didn't like it at the time. I didn't like the, well, I say at the time, I didn't watch it when it first aired, but I didn't like it at the time I actually saw it for the first time, which was before all of these spoofs and parodies and references became painfully dated. I didn't like them when they were relevant. I like them even less now. And yeah, so let's get into this. We've got this entire thing. We've got so much time sunk into these topical TV show parodies of Big Brother, The Weakest Link, and I guess it's a British version of What Not to Wear, or it's some equivalent of that. Why? Like, why? Why would anyone think that this is worth more than 5 minutes tops of the runtime to your penultimate episode of your first series? Like, these are not biting observations, especially the way that the climax of this episode drops all of that. It has no relevance to anything that happens in the last 10 minutes. It was just a way to fill the time until we got to there. So, like, look, if they were going to legitimately try and do some sort of parody where they came to a future or a world or whatever, where there were game shows where the prize is we don't kill you, there is some possibility in that as a initial starting concept. Tying it to specific at the time relevant TV shows was the first mistake. Using it to pad out something because what you needed to do to set up the following episode didn't build a complete episode in and of itself, so you needed to pad it out, just sinks the entire friggin' thing. I don't find these funny. And maybe it's because I don't like any of the shows they're parodying. Maybe if I did, maybe I'd get more entertainment out of it. But it is so great. And even if like I didn't hate it in and of itself, it just drags on so long because we get established relatively early through Rose's in The Weakest Link thing that these are deadly games because one of the other contestants there gets zapped by the droid. And yet we still go through a prolonged thing where it's like it's another 5 minutes after that before the Doctor sees that these games are deadly. And it's another few minutes after that Jack realizes he's in danger. It gets established with Rose, but then they spend all this unnecessary time reestablishing it again for each of the other two characters. Why? As an audience, we are immediately making the leap. Oh, they're all in danger. And then we're waiting for the heroes to catch up, which is never a good way to tell a story. You should not be waiting for your heroes to realize what you already know first for multiple scenes. It can work for tension building in a single scene if, like, there's a bomb that the other people in the room don't know about. You can build tension around that, but if you're just waiting for them to figure something out that you already know, that's not tension, that's boredom and aggravation in my case. So there's all of that going on. It is such a total waste of Patterson Joseph, who is a wonderful actor. And honestly, I've given up at this point. He was an actor for a very long time. I wanted to take over for the Doctor. I wanted him to come in after Tennant and play the Doctor. And if you don't think that he would work in that part, then you need to go see the Neverwhere miniseries, which is not great. Production values are kind of crap, but there's some highlights in it, and he is one of them, and he's awesome in that, and I can totally see him being the Doctor, and he's here wasted as this jerk contestant alongside Rose for the weakest link, and then what happens to him in the next episode, which I won't even get to specifically, I probably will forget to mention when I reviewed that episode, doesn't pay off or make that satisfying. What a waste of a great actor. Now, not all of the supporting cast in this is a waste. Linda with a Y, I actually quite like her. I like the dynamic that she gets going with Eccleston, pretty much off the bat. I like that she's, kind of nice, kind of curious, he kind of lights a spark of hope in her, that she, was probably a little bit more of a dying ember that she had before. But, she's like, oh, things can be good and fun and not afraid I'm about to die? Huh. Yeah, that doesn't last too long, because then we have the threat of the Daleks. Now, the Daleks showing up, the reveal in and of itself is good, or it would be, if not for one thing, which is strictly speaking not the fault of this episode, but I need to bring it up anyway, because one of the funny things about watching these is that when you watch these, however you are doing it, whether it's on a streaming service or on the DVDs or what have you, they still have the next time on Doctor Who, because those were actually built into the episodes to come in before the credits started most of the time. And so, as a result, they blew the Dalek reveal in the next time on Doctor Who segment at the end of the previous episode. So, look, Doctor Who has a fairly decent history at this point. I say decent in terms of decent amount, not decent like it's a decent thing, of blowing its own surprises. I mean, just the fact that the announcement of a new Doctor, they make a big deal out of it instead of surprising us with it, speaks to that. But I've said before that logistically, sometimes they don't really have a choice, because new people are going to be on set. Things leak. Everyone has a phone with a camera on it in their pockets, so it's harder to keep on top of stuff. But back when this was done, there was no excuse for that. Absolutely none. It's just, it's infuriating, because the episode itself is built on the assumption that you don't know that the Daleks are behind this. It's very clearly, structurally supposed to be a surprise. And it's not at all, because they blew it. If I set aside the fact that that happened, yes, as a reveal in and of itself, works pretty decently. And it's a nice build, because, we had established in the episode Dalek how dangerous these things are. And then we get, boy, one of these was that was a big problem. Now there's an army of them. Oh crap, that is pretty solid escalation as far as these things go. So that works. I mean, the dynamic between the main cast, the Doctor and Jack and Rose, that works. That's fine. And I really do like Eccleston's no. I like once the Daleks get revealed, the tail end of this episode is really solid stuff, and it's good setup for what comes at the end. I love his no. I love his just taking that stand. Although I will say, and this is bringing up a little bit, I guess it doesn't really feed too much in the next episode, but it is slightly weird to me that, so back in Dalek, the Doctor's anger that was sparked at seeing a live Dalek, and that he kind of just spat venom at this thing, yelling at it, "Why don't you just die?" And it's odd to me that instinct and those emotions in that episode were played as his damage and were played as signs of issues and problems and things that he's got to deal with, because this is not good that he's like this. But here, coming off the no, I said no, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. He ends that with, I'm going to wipe every last stinking Dalek out of the sky. And it's weird to me that he's tapping into that anger again, but here it's played as cathartic and rousing. That there's an odd disconnect there that, to be fair, only exists if you've kind of binged through the season, like I have. So it's not, again, not necessarily a big fault of the episode, but it is odd to me that they have him have that specific line, where up until then, I think it was played a little bit more muted, which I really like. Like, I love that the Daleks are like, "You have no resources, no plan," and he's just like, "Yeah. Doesn't that scare you to death?" Eccleston's great in this. When I talk about there being that weird disconnect in terms of the anger being played for catharsis here, that's nothing about his performance. That's a choice of the editing and the way the scene is built with music and presented. That speaks nothing to his performance, which is great. He is really, really good in this, as he's been through the vast majority of this series. So, yeah, the reason I had to talk about Bad Wolf as a separate thing instead of talking about it and the Parting of Ways as a single entity is that I have so much hatred and bile about how not only the mere existence of the game show parodies, but how much time is sunk into them and ultimately how pointless they are. It drives me up the wall. And that is such a big chunk of this episode. That is the majority of the runtime of this episode. I don't feel right complaining about that and then having to try and thread the needle of going from that to talking about the next episode. My brain can't make that gear shift. Not in a single video. So that's why I'm breaking it up and doing these two things. So, Bad Wolf. Next week will be Parting of Ways, which I've had to reorient my entire planned schedule for this now. But yes, Bad Wolf. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A whole bunch of stuff you can do because there's buttons and there's links. So you can like and subscribe or, follow a link to the Patreon if you are feeling oh so very generous. But you know what? If you're not, don't even sweat it because there's other links you can check out if you feel like it. But don't feel any pressure because at the end of the day, you guys are the council and I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.